Well, hello, everybody. We are about to start our webinar and forum discussion about data economy, data fairness, and the fiscal dimension of the data economy. Again, I welcome you all. My name is Jonas Scheind. I'm the Chief Economist at the Fiscal Policy Institute. And this is a great evening, very hot evening in the summer for us to get together and talk about data and the fiscal implications of data and the types of policy innovation and new types of thinking that is required for the 21st century. We are going to have a keynote presentation of new research and then a panel discussion. That is going to be followed by the Q&A. So please, everyone in the audience, if you have questions, please do hang on and let those questions get into the Q&A, and we'll be happy to address them either within this forum, or we'll follow up with you after that. So without any further ado, I would like to introduce our keynote speaker, whom many of you probably know. That is the policy innovator in our state, a forward thinker. That is the State Senator Andrew Gonardis, who represents New York's 22nd State Senate District. That includes the neighborhoods of Bay Ridge, Dyker Heights, Bensonhurst, Bath Beach, Gravesend, Garrison Beach, Manhattan Beach, and Marine Park. It's a pretty big district. He was elected in 2018, and he's a chair of the Committee on Civil Service and Pensions, and has passed key legislation over the years to expand the services to 9/11 heroes and to promote street safety and to include a landmark school zone speed camera extension to protect students and the families. He's a champion of the fight to fix the MTA and to fund our public schools and universities. So please welcome, join me in welcoming Senator Andrew Gonardis.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Jonas. Hello, everyone. Thank you to all my panelists who are part of this conversation. Really glad to be here with you all. And this is a very welcome distraction from the chaos that's unfolding right now with New York City's elections and what's happening with the Board of Election results and reissuing results. And so I'm glad that we're talking about this and not talking about ranked choice voting and the election. So, we're here to talk about something that I think is an important conversation that, frankly, has not really, reached what I think is the appropriate level of discourse in public policy circles, certainly not here in New York, but also around the country, or even around the world. And that is, what is the value of our data, and how do we, as people who both use data and create data, see a return on the profits made off of our personal data. We see a lot of conversation in the tech space about privacy. We see a lot of conversation in the tech space around targeted advertising, about the interplay between big tech and politics, about automation. So we see lots of other conversations happening in the technology space, but we really don't see much conversation happening around the question of what is our data worth? And if people are making money off of our data, how do we then see a return of that back to us? Now, there's been some conversation, here or there. Different people have proposed ideas like digital data dividends or personal checks. But I think that what those solutions lack is really an understanding of the fact that our data is not valuable because it's one individual person's data. It's not Andrew Gonardis's data is worth thousands of dollars. It's the fact that it's my data and my neighbor's data and my staff's data and all of your data combined, bundled together, that gets sold and chopped up and commercialized in different ways and packaged and repackaged, that creates immense value in the world. There was a study done by the University of Oxford, Open Internet Institute, about 3 years ago, that pegged the value of the data economy at 7% of GDP. Now that is huge. and that number is only growing. If we look at a place like New York State, which has an estimated GDP of $2.3 trillion, we are talking about hundreds of billions of dollars of economic value created by the commercialization and commodification of personal data. What do we mean when we say personal data? It's a lot of different things. Some of the obvious things are when you input things into your social media profiles. You like pepperoni pizza, you prefer Levi's jeans, and listening to Bruce Springsteen, and you put those all in your personal attributes. Well, that becomes personal data that's used, facts about you. But it goes way beyond that. When you type things into your email, when you speak something in your house and your Alexa device picks it up, and the next day you get an ad on your phone for what you were talking about. If you place an order on your phone for a Starbucks coffee and you go pick it up, all of the your preferences for how you like your coffee, where you get your coffee, and where you pick it up from, are all facets of personal data. We contribute and we create so much of this information, and so much of this gets collected by tech companies, big and small. And frankly, a lot more of the companies that collect them are small. We don't even know the full universe of people. We, as in the lay people, don't even know the full universe of people that are collecting this data and that are selling our data to other individuals. The universe is so great of all this information that's collected about us, making profiles about us, making guesses about us, selling us things, marketing us things. And so what we're saying is that it's time that we shift the conversation and that we think about how can we create a return of the value that we create for others back to the people that create the data themselves. There's two facets of that. Number one is kind of what I just described, which is the data that we all create by inputting things into profiles and emails and clicks and things like that. But there's also something else that I don't think many of us realize, and that oftentimes many of us are creating new data for the sole benefit of technology companies. When you have to input certain passwords or certain, do like reCAPTCHA boxes on to access a website, you are creating data to train the AI machines that that own those tech platforms. That helps them then further refine their technologies. You're doing work for those companies. 100 years ago, if you went to a button factory and pressed a button for 8 hours a day, you would firmly expect to get compensated for your labor of pressing that button 8 hours a day. Or I guess, a century ago, you might have been working a lot longer than 8 hours a day. But the point still remains, you would have been compensated for the work you are creating. Millions of us are doing this work every single day, and we are not seeing a penny of compensation for it. So what we have done, and what this proposal is all about, is to say for the first time, we are going to create a system to tax technology companies that commercialize or commodify users' personal identifiable data for profit. And we are going to tax them on their net revenues that they derive from users in the state of New York. And then we are going to use that money that we collect for a public good. Not going to go back as a personal dividend to each individual person, because we really don't know what each individual person's data is worth. But instead, we're going to put it towards a collective purpose and the public good. And some of the things that we talked about investing that money in are some of the obvious ones. It's education funding. It's closing the digital divide. It's helping to do workforce development for the 21st century, digital literacy, things that really go a long way to help equal the playing field that we face against these big technology companies, us as lay people, in trying to navigate the new digital world of the 21st century. We estimate, through FPI's research, that we can collect at the very beginning somewhere around $1 billion a year for New York State. That number will inevitably grow as the data economy continues to grow here in New York. And we think this will be a great way to kind of get ahead of how the economy is changing. Years ago, we used to tax people just based solely on their property. We still do some of that. Then we started taxing them solely based on their income. We still do some of that. Well, now we're moving towards an economy which is being fueled entirely by gains in the digital economy that we are not able to effectively or appropriately tax. You look at the New York Times just a couple of weeks ago. A lot of these tech companies are paying very little, if anything, in corporate taxes because they're not structured in a way to pay taxes. They evade and they avoid through legal channels being fair, people that pay their fair share. So we're saying that we are trying to put reins on the digital economy, not to stymie it, not to stop it, not to put the ketchup back in the tube, but instead to say, this is the way the world is going to work now. We want to incentivize good technology behavior to limit how much data gets collected for essential purposes, and then make sure that the people that are creating that data are in fact being compensated for it in a way that makes the most sense. So my office came together with the Office of the Brooklyn Borough President last year with FPI to kind of brainstorm this idea. We assembled a working group that we brought additional people to the table, including some of our panelists who are here today, Joe Toscano, who you'll hear from in a little bit, from the Beacon Network. And we also brought in a legal team from the Brooklyn Law School Innovation Clinic to help us really unpack this question and put together a proposal that we think makes sense and that has legs that we can actually pursue. And the product of that work is the Data Labor Compensation and Accountability Act, which we introduced about 6 or 7 weeks ago. And we hope over the next couple of months to educate stakeholders, both in New York State, in the tech community, and in the general public about the benefits of adopting a proposal like this, the need to adopt a proposal like this, and then hope that next year we can actually succeed in trying to get this across the finish line. If you look at other states around the country, state like Maryland has already adopted a tax on digital advertising. If you look at some jurisdictions in Europe, they've been talking about trying to adopt a data tax similar to what we are proposing. Nobel economist Paul Romer has written extensively about the utility of data taxes as a way to regulate and provide some accountability to the tech space. So this is not entirely new. It's now we are just taking all these different ideas that are out there, expanding upon them, and trying to really put them forward in a firm legislative proposal. I also want to acknowledge, even though we put this proposal together, and even though I'm the senator who's talking about this, one of my colleagues, Senator Liz Krueger, who is the chairwoman of the Finance Committee, has also put forth a similar idea about a data tax, very similar to what we have been proposing, a little bit different. But I think it just goes to show that there are people starting to think about this in a way that is really, really important and really significant. And it's our hope that through discussions like tonight, we can help start the education process to really get this ball rolling, because we think that this is a no-brainer from a legislative perspective. And I'll stop there because I'd much rather hear from our panelists and to take all of your questions than to hear myself talk about this, the last year of my policy labors.
Thank you very much, Senator. It was a pleasure to think together and work together on this bill. And of course, it is interesting how the discussion is changing and the world is changing, and there's a growing recognition of the need to capture some of the value that data as a strategic resource represents.